Hello, Void Dwellers. Agatha, after all, has pulled Marvel fans back into the MCU, and for good reason. It was a fantastic show, quite literally, and showed that the Marvel powerhouse still has some good ideas left in it. By the way, this little discussion of Agatha and the MCU is mostly without spoilers, but I do give 2 spoilers at the end of the video, and I will let you know when they are coming so you can skip those. But anyway, to me, above all, Agatha proved that all that woke superheroes nonsense that you hear from the right-wing YouTubers is, well, nonsense. And to those who don't know, these are men in their late 30s or 40s who made a career on YouTube from complaining about how girls are touching their action figures and they don't like it because girls have cooties. And they would rant about how dare the MCU present women superheroes or women villains. Because these prehistorical-minded men imagine the MCU is their personal clubhouse and no girls allowed unless they wear revealing outfits and know their places. But the truth is that shows like Miss Marvel, which admittedly I didn't watch because I don't think that men in their 40s is really the target audience here, but that show has an 80% audience approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And for the record, when looking at scores on Rotten Tomatoes, I couldn't give 2 shits about the critics. Critics are losers who shit on other people's creativity because they can't do it themselves. But the audience, these are just real people who would normally watch this kind of a show or a movie. So that is a much greater indicator than the critics. For example, the very manly Secret Invasion has only 44% approval, even though the hero is a manly man and the villain is a manly man, but guess what? The writing was absolutely dog shit. So, of course people hated it. In fact, all other MCU female-led films and shows have high ratings, and the only one with a bad score is She-Hulk, and that was because it was just taking the piss out of everything and everyone in the MCU, including the audience, which I kinda liked, but I guess not everyone can take a joke. I would also say that I was kind of afraid that the banana split Daredevil they had on the show represented the future of the character in the MCU, but that has since been proven wrong. But I think in real time it might have damaged the show as well. And then there's the Marvels. The Marvels was the MCU's biggest bomb in theaters, especially considering the amount of money they invested in it. And the right-wingers were like, yeah, you see, it's because it's all women and directed by women. How dare they? Well, first of all, the Marvels also have a high audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And even on IMDb, the score is not that bad. And you may think, well, 5.5 out of 10 is not good, but the score on IMDb is always harsher than the actual reception of the movie. Even Iron Man, which is still considered the golden standard of MCU movies, doesn't even get to 8 out of 10. So 5.5 is not amazing, but everything within the range of 5.5 to 6.5 is kind of average. It's an okay movie. And indeed, once it was on Disney Plus, I watched it and I felt pretty much that way. That the hate the movie has gotten was completely unjustified. Yeah, it's not a great entry for the MCU, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't, Thor, Love and Thunder bad. But I would say that the Marvels doesn't work as well as Agatha all along. So why? You have 2 entries in the MCU, both surround female characters, both directed and written by women. So why did Agatha work so well and the Marvels didn't? Well, I believe there are several reasons. First of all, better story. I really do believe that a lot of things can kill a show or a movie, from the wrong casting, to a bad score, to poor direction. But I believe that the foundation of everything is the writing. And it all starts with the story. The Marvels just gave us more of the same. It's not particularly bad, but it won't surprise you either. Not the motivations of the characters, both good and evil, not the outcome, not even the jokes. The jokes actually reminded me again of Thor, Love and Thunder. They were either the kind of humor we've seen and heard before and therefore it's not as effective anymore, or they are over the top and just came off as goofy and unimaginative. The story never feels like it has any stakes. In the Marvels, several planets get destroyed, and you still don't feel like there are any stakes. In Agatha, you have 4 witches and an unsuspecting woman going through trials on a magical road, and you feel worried about who of them might be killed off next. How come the stakes feel so much more real when it is significantly smaller? It's like the difference between the Death Star firing in the original Star Wars and destroying Alderaan versus the bigger Death Star destroying several planets in the Disney fanfiction trilogy. When you saw Alderaan getting destroyed as a kid, it was a moment of horror. It hit you, and it drove home just how evil these people are. When you saw the bigger Death Star destroying several unnamed planets in a very generic CGI render, it did nothing. It's about building up to these moments. It's about less is more. It's about earning these moments instead of pouncing on them repeatedly. And that's where Agatha all along really excels. And that would be my second point: better characters. Aside from the characters being more likable and more layered, they also felt more human. The characters in the Marvels, they feel like a construct. They feel like they were specifically designed with only one thing in mind: to educate us about what women can do. It was like, this woman is a superhero because girls can be superheroes too. This woman is a scientist because girls can be scientists too. This woman is a villain because women can be villains too. And that's not a bad message. It's just bad writing. That's not how you get a message like that across. On Agatha, on the other hand, you feel like you are in the presence of real women. And it might be a shock to some people, but most of us Marvel fans actually do recognize a real woman when we see one, and a construct when we see that. It's the same trick that made Buffy such a success. Every woman in that show felt real, layered, different from each other, and resembled women and girls we knew in our real lives, minus the superpowers, for the most part. And that's on the global scale, because the truth is, no matter where you are in the world, people are people. Yes, there are cultural differences, but these are nonsense. They don't matter. The patterns are the same. And that's what we recognize. That's why shows and films from one country can become global hits. Another point for Agatha: better visuals. Marvel has really got to learn that the overuse of CGI takes away from the experience. The sets on Agatha were incredible. They are a reminder of the ingenuity and creativity of the human creature. You see the combined efforts of designers and sculptors and painters, all of these artists who came together, each with their own speciality, each working on their own little area, and they cooperate to bring us this incredible, massive, beautiful creation in which we get lost with those characters, and it's incredible. And it's all there, all on camera. It's like old Hollywood, the way they used to make things. And yeah, there are some CGI moments, but again, it's a less is more kind of a deal. And finally, the anti-hero done right. The villain in the Marvels felt like a cardboard character. It's not a performance, by the way. The actress performed her to perfection. But they didn't give her a whole lot to work with. The motivation is basically, I'm going to destroy other worlds to save my own. Which many people pointed out correctly that it was the plot of Mel Brooks' comedy Spaceballs, which spoofs sci-fi movies. So yeah, if the best motivation you manage to come up with is the same as that of a villain in a movie that goes out of its way to be ridiculous, you probably gone a wrong turn somewhere. In Agatha, on the other hand, the villain is the main character herself. Remember, she was first introduced as the villain in WandaVision. Agatha is not a nice person. And by the way, this is where I'm giving a couple of spoilers, so you might want to stop here if you haven't seen the show. But anyway, she's basically a serial killer. By the end, we learn that her entire MO is to gather a coven around her, kill the witches, and steal their powers, which is what she was planning to do here all along as well with these characters. But she is layered. She's human. She has reasons for being callous. She is in pain. She is grieving. She has weaknesses, emotional weaknesses, and it comes out in the show, without making her less of a scary bitch. So to counter her darkness, they had to bring in Death herself. And we discover that they are ex-lovers, which is absolutely perfect for this character. Moving forwards, if we do encounter Agatha again, and it does seem like that is the plan, I hope they won't take that away from her. I hope they don't forget who she is at heart. Agatha is one of those characters that even if she did become a moral person, her morality would be more akin to that of Punisher than Captain America. Don't turn her into Glinda the Good Sorceress. Let Agatha, and us as the audience, bask in her wickedness. By the way, how weird and awesome would a Punisher Agatha crossover be? Maybe a bit too weird? Yeah, probably a little too weird.